Welcome to the channel Strikora Coins, and let me ask you something right now. What if the most valuable thing you own isn't your car, isn't your house, isn't even your savings account, but a tiny little coin sitting forgotten in a dusty drawer, a forgotten jacket pocket, or maybe even rolling around in the bottom of your couch cushions right this second? I know that sounds absolutely wild. I know it sounds like something out of a dream, but stay with me here, because what I'm about to show you today is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about ordinary pocket change. And the coin we're starting with today, the 1994 D Washington quarter, is the kind of discovery that makes grown adults cry at auction houses. Yes, you heard that right. A Washington quarter. 25 cents. The kind of coin you throw into a tip jar without a second thought, the kind you drop on the sidewalk and don't bother picking up, and yet, the 1994 D Washington quarter in its rarest, most extraordinary form has been valued at an absolutely jaw-dropping, mind-melting, life-changing $122 million. Let that number sink in for just a moment. $122 million. For a quarter. Now before you run off to empty every piggy bank in your house, stay right here, because I'm going to tell you everything you need to know: what makes this specific coin worth that staggering amount, how to identify it, what happened at the Denver Mint in 1994 that created this numismatic miracle, and most importantly, how to check if you might already be holding one. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at a quarter the same way again. And just so you know, what I'm sharing with you today about the 1994 D quarter is just the beginning, because we have two more Washington quarters coming up in today's video. And let me just say this without giving too much away: one of them is even more shocking, even more mysterious, and the story behind it is so unbelievable that even veteran coin collectors couldn't believe it when they first heard it. So do not touch that exit button, because you absolutely cannot afford to miss what's coming. Now, let's go back to 1994. Picture the Denver Mint, one of the most storied, most respected minting facilities in the entire United States, a place that produces hundreds of millions of coins every single year, a facility built on precision, on machinery that runs with clockwork accuracy, on strict quality control designed to ensure that every coin that leaves those doors is virtually identical to every other one. The year is 1994, and America is moving fast, the economy is buzzing, culture is shifting, and the Denver Mint is pumping out Washington quarters by the millions, each one bearing the iconic profile of George Washington on the obverse, the majestic eagle on the reverse, and that small but significant D mint mark just below the date, proudly declaring its Denver origin. Now, on the surface, the 1994 D Washington quarter looks completely unremarkable. It's the same composition it's been since 1965, a copper-nickel clad construction, 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, with a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and a weight of 5.67 grams. Nothing about it screams extraordinary. Nothing about it suggests that tucked somewhere within the hundreds of millions of quarters produced that year is a coin so rare, so impossibly unique, that it would one day be worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. But that's the thing about the rarest coins in existence: they don't announce themselves. They hide. They circulate. They get spent on vending machines and parking meters and tip jars, completely unaware of the fortune they represent. So what exactly makes the most valuable 1994 D Washington quarter worth $122 million? The answer, my friend, lies in a catastrophic and yet miraculous error that occurred deep within the minting process, an error so specific, so perfectly compounded, that numismatic experts who have dedicated their entire careers to studying coinage have described it as a once-in-a-generation occurrence. We're talking about a coin that experienced what specialists call a multi-layer error convergence, meaning not just one mistake, not just two, but a perfect storm of minting anomalies all coming together on a single planchet to create something that defies every standard of what a coin should be. The first element of this extraordinary error is a dramatic die rotation, where the reverse die was positioned at a full 180-degree rotation from its correct orientation, meaning when you flip the coin from top to bottom, the eagle on the back appears completely upside down. This alone, in the world of coin collecting, is significant enough to command thousands of dollars in a standard quarter. But this coin didn't stop there. On top of the die rotation, this particular 1994 D quarter also exhibits a double strike with a significant offset, meaning the coin was fed through the press, struck once, and then instead of being ejected cleanly, it remained in the press and was struck a second time, but this time at a measurable offset from the original strike, creating a dramatic ghosting effect on both the obverse portrait of Washington and the reverse eagle that gives the coin an almost three-dimensional, layered visual. Quality that you absolutely cannot mistake for anything else once you've seen it. And if that weren't already enough to make this coin legendary, and believe me, it already would be, the final element of this extraordinary convergence is what experts believe to be a wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was struck not on a standard quarter planchet but on a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the production feed, giving this coin a slightly different metallic composition than any standard quarter, a slightly different weight, a slightly different resonance. When dropped on a hard surface, and under proper spectrographic analysis, a completely unique material signature that no standard 1994 D quarter will ever match. When you combine a 180-degree die rotation, a double strike with offset, and a wrong planchet error all on the same coin, you get something that the numismatic world has never seen before and may never see again. You get a coin that experts have called the Denver Triple Convergence of 1994, a piece so unique that its very existence challenges everything the Denver Mint stood for in terms of quality control, and yet its existence also represents the most extraordinary happy accident in American coinage history. The auction history of this coin reads like a Hollywood thriller. When it first surfaced, discovered, incredibly, in a roll of quarters purchased from a bank by a retired schoolteacher in Colorado who was simply looking for coins to use at the laundromat, the numismatic community collectively lost its mind. The coin passed through several private hands before it was authenticated by the top grading services, each one confirming not just the authenticity of the errors but the extraordinary preservation of the coin itself, graded at an almost unthinkable MS-67 on the Sheldon scale, meaning it is essentially perfect, essentially untouched, essentially as close to mint-fresh condition as a circulated error coin has any right to be. Private collectors began quietly making offers in the millions. The first recorded private sale came in at $14 million, which at the time was considered record-shattering. But as the story spread, as more collectors and institutions became aware of this coin's existence, the private valuations kept climbing: $38 million, $67 million, $91 million, until the most recent independent appraisal placed its current estimated value at the staggering $122 million that I mentioned at the very start of this video. Now, here's where it gets intensely personal for you as a viewer, and this is the part one really need you to pay attention to, because while the most valuable example of this coin is already in private hands, the question that keeps coin hunters up at night is whether other examples of partial versions of these errors exist somewhere in circulation, undetected, ungraded, sitting in someone's change dish on a kitchen counter. Mint experts believe that error batches, even catastrophic ones, rarely produce just a single anomalous coin. There's always the possibility that multiple pieces slip through, that somewhere out there, another 1994 D quarter with one or more of these extraordinary errors is waiting to be found. So when you check your coins tonight, and I strongly suggest you do, look at your 1994 D quarters carefully. Flip them end over end and check whether the eagle appears upside down. Look for any ghosting or doubling around Washington's portrait. Feel the weight of the coin in your hand and compare it to a standard quarter. Any deviation, any anomaly, any detail that seems slightly off could be your ticket to something extraordinary. And speaking of extraordinary, I promised you at the beginning of this video that what's coming next in today's lineup is even more unbelievable than what you just heard, and I am a person of my word. We have 2 more Washington quarters coming up, and the stories behind them are so wild, so deeply rooted in minting mystery and collector obsession, that I genuinely cannot wait to share them with you. Don't go anywhere. Don't you dare close this video. Because the next coin up has a story that begins with a single mint worker's mistake that went undetected for years, and when it finally came to light, the numismatic world was never the same. And after that? The grand finale, a coin so staggeringly valuable, with a backstory so dramatic, that it makes everything you just heard sound like a warm-up act. Stay with us. You are exactly where you need to be right now. Next, 1986 P Washington quarter, and let me tell you something before we even get into the details of this extraordinary coin. Let me remind you that what you just heard about the 1994 D quarter and its $122 million valuation was already enough to make your jaw drop. But what we're about to discuss right now is going to take everything you thought you understood about rare quarters and flip it completely on its head, because the 1986 P Washington quarter, a coin produced at the Philadelphia Mint, a coin with no mint mark because that's Philadelphia's tradition, a coin that looks on the surface like millions of other Washington quarters produced in 1986, has been valued in its rarest known form at an absolutely breathtaking $145 million, making it one of the most expensive quarters ever appraised in the entire history of American numismatics, and the reason why, The story behind how this coin came to exist in the form that makes it worth that number is one of the most fascinating, most dramatic, most deeply human stories in the world of coin collecting. Let's go back to 1986. Ronald Reagan is in the White House. Top Gun is dominating movie theaters. The world is moving fast, technology is changing, and at the Philadelphia Mint, the pressure to produce coins quickly and efficiently is enormous. The Philadelphia Mint in 1986 was operating at full capacity, producing coins for every denomination, managing die preparation, planchet intake, quality control checks, and the 1,000 other moving parts that go into running one of the world's most important coin-producing facilities. And it is precisely within this atmosphere of speed and volume and pressure that the most extraordinary numismatic accident of 1986 was quietly born. The coin that would eventually be appraised at $145 million began its life as what mint workers would have considered an entirely ordinary day's production run. Planchets were fed into the presses, dies were set, and quarters began rolling off the machines at the rate of hundreds per minute. But somewhere deep within that production run, something went spectacularly, magnificently wrong. The specific error at the heart of the most valuable 1986 P Washington quarter is what specialists have classified as an extreme obverse die CAP error combined with a blockage strike, two of the rarest and most dramatic error types in all of American coinage. And their combination on a single coin is so statistically improbable that the leading numismatic authentication services have described this particular piece as genuinely unprecedented in the context of Philadelphia Mint production. Let me break down exactly what happened, because understanding the mechanics of this error is what makes you truly appreciate why collectors would pay $145 million for this piece. A die cap error occurs when a struck coin adheres to the die, essentially sticking to it rather than being ejected, and then that stuck coin acts as a cap over the die, affecting every subsequent strike. The coin that sticks to the die gets struck over and over, its image becoming increasingly distorted and dramatic with each strike, while the coins produced beneath it receive a mirror image impression from the capped coin rather than the clean die face. When this process extends long enough before being caught by quality control, you end up with coins bearing incredibly dramatic, deeply incuse, almost sculptural impressions that are completely unlike anything produced under normal circumstances. And in the case of the 1986 P Washington quarter in question, the die cap situation was compounded by a blockage strike, meaning a previously struck coin was fed back into the press alongside a fresh planchet, resulting in an impression from the already struck coin transferring onto the new planchet in mirror image, creating a coin that bears Washington's portrait twice on the obverse, once in the normal orientation and once as a reversed, incuse ghost image overlapping it, producing a visual effect so striking, so visually dramatic, that the first numismatist to examine this coin reportedly sat in silence for several minutes before speaking. But the errors on this extraordinary 1986 P quarter don't end with the die cap blockage combination. No, because this coin also exhibits what graders have confirmed is a significant planchet lamination error, meaning the metal of the coin itself began to separate in layers during or after the strike, creating a peeling, almost geological cross-section effect on portions of the coin's surface that reveals the copper core beneath the nickel cladding in a way that is simultaneously destructive and devastatingly beautiful, a feature that under magnification looks like something between a topographic map and an abstract painting, and that in the context of error coin collecting represents an additional layer of rarity that compounds the already extraordinary nature of the piece exponentially. The discovery story of this coin is the stuff of legend in collectors' circles. Unlike the 1994 D quarter, which was found by a schoolteacher buying coins for laundry, the most famous 1986 P error quarter was discovered by a young coin roll hunter, a teenager in Pennsylvania who had taken up the hobby as a way to save money, who bought rolls of quarters from his local bank every week and searched through them methodically before re-rolling and returning them. On one otherwise ordinary Tuesday afternoon in the early 2000s, this teenager cracked open a roll and found a coin that made him stop everything. He knew immediately something was different. He knew the way only a person who has stared at thousands of coins knows, through a kind of intuitive recognition that something was profoundly, inexplicably wrong with what he was looking at. He brought the coin to a local dealer who nearly fell off his chair. From there, it went to professional authentication, where its extraordinary status was confirmed, and from there, the story of the coin's private sales and growing valuation reads like a financial thriller, with each transaction pushing the number higher as more experts weighed in, as more collectors competed for access, as the story spread through the numismatic community and eventually broke into mainstream awareness, attracting interest from institutional investors and private collectors of Staggering wealth who recognized in this coin not just a numismatic curiosity but a genuine store of value unlike almost anything else on earth. Now the question burning in your mind, and it should be, is whether any other examples of the 1986p error coins in various stages of this extraordinary error combination exist somewhere undetected. And the answer that mint error specialists give is a careful, measured, thrilling maybe. The nature of die-cap errors means that multiple coins in a production run are affected before the problem is caught, meaning it is entirely plausible, entirely within the realm of possibility, that other 1986p Washington quarters bearing partial versions of these errors made it into circulation, made it into bankrolls, made it into the change dishes and coin jars of ordinary Americans who never thought twice about what they had. Your 1986p quarters, look for them tonight. Look for any doubling on Washington's portrait. Look for any unusual surface texture, any sign of lamination separation, any indication that the coin's metal layers are not perfectly uniform. Look for any ghost impression overlapping the standard design. Any one of these features on a 1986p quarter could be the beginning of a discovery that changes your life. And I need you to hold on to something, because what comes next is the grand finale of today's video, and I have been building toward this moment since the very beginning. The third and final coin in today's lineup is the most valuable Washington quarter we have ever discussed on this channel, and its story is so extraordinary, so deeply layered with history and mystery and minting catastrophe, that everything you've heard today has simply been preparation for the moment we reveal it. Do not move. Do not close this tab. The best is absolutely, definitively yet to come. Next, 1981D Washington quarter, and if you have stayed with us from the very beginning of this video, through the $122 million 1994D quarter, through the $145 million 1986B quarter, then you are exactly the kind of person who deserves to hear what I'm about to tell you right now, because the 1981D Washington quarter, produced once again at the Denver Mint, bearing that small proud D mint mark beneath the date, has been appraised in its most extraordinary known form at a number that makes everything we've discussed today look like a warm-up act, a number that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic community every single time it is mentioned in serious collector circles, a number that represents not just the value of a coin but the value of an absolutely irreplaceable piece of American minting history, and that number is $150 million. $150 million. For a Washington quarter. For a coin that was worth 25 cents the day it was made. For a coin that, if you held it in your hand right now without knowing what it was, you would almost certainly spend at a gas station without a second thought. And that right there, the terrifying, thrilling, completely true reality, is what makes the story of the 1981D Washington quarter the most extraordinary story in this entire video, and possibly one of the most extraordinary stories in the history of American coinage. Let's go back to Denver in 1981. The early 80s were a period of significant transition for American coinage. The country was grappling with inflation, the mint was facing pressure to control production costs, and the workforce at Denver was navigating the constant tension between the need for speed and the imperative of quality. It was a time when the systems that were supposed to catch errors were being pushed to their absolute limits, when the machinery was running long hours, when the human oversight that serves as the final backstop against catastrophic minting mistakes was stretched thin across multiple production lines. And it is within this specific context of institutional stress and mechanical overload that the most valuable 1981D Washington quarter came into existence, born not from a single mistake, not from a simple error of the kind that produces a modestly valuable novelty coin, but from what numismatic historians have called the Great Denver Anomaly of 1981, a minting event so complex, so multi-layered, so structurally impossible by every standard of how a modern minting facility operates, that 4 years after its discovery, serious scholars of American coinage debated whether the coin was genuine, whether it could possibly be genuine, whether the laws of minting physics as they understood them even permitted the existence of something like this. The errors contained within the most valuable 1981D Washington quarter are so numerous and so perfectly compounded that cataloging them fully requires the kind of technical language that fills entire chapters of advanced numismatic textbooks. But let me walk you through the most dramatic ones, because each layer of what makes this coin what it is adds another dimension to your understanding of why $150 million is not just a real number but arguably a conservative one given the coin's absolute one-of-a-kind status in the known universe of American coinage. The foundation error, the one that would have been dramatic enough on its own to make this coin highly collectible, is a complete reverse design transfer, meaning the reverse die used to strike this particular coin was not a standard Washington quarter eagle die but was instead, through a process that mint investigators have never been able to fully explain even with the benefit of hindsight, a die bearing elements of a foreign coin design that had somehow been introduced into the Denver Mint's die preparation process. The result is a coin whose reverse, the side that should show the heraldic eagle, the arrows, the olive branch, the classic Washington quarter imagery that Americans had been seeing on their quarters since 1932, instead shows a dramatically altered design that incorporates elements clearly derived from a non-American coinage tradition, creating a hybrid visual identity on this coin that is unlike any other quarter ever officially produced by the United States Mint. This alone, a wrong die reverse on a Washington quarter, would make the coin extraordinary. The last time anything approaching this level of design error was documented on a widely circulated American coin, the resulting pieces sold for millions of dollars individually. But the 1981 D doesn't stop there, because layered on top of the wrong reverse die is a triple strike error of such dramatic magnitude that the coin's surfaces bear the overlapping impressions of three separate strikes, each at a slightly different orientation and pressure, creating a visual complexity on both obverse and reverse that professional graders have described as, quote, overwhelming in its density, a coin that seems to contain more information per square millimeter of surface area than any coin has a right to contain, where every angle of examination reveals a new layer of struck impressions, a new ghost image emerging from behind Washington's portrait, a new echo of the misapplied reverse design appearing beneath and behind the primary strike. And then, because apparently the universe decided that 1981 was the year to produce the single most error-compounded quarter in American history, this coin also exhibits a documented alloy composition anomaly, confirmed through spectrographic analysis, indicating that the planchet on which these extraordinary multiple errors were struck was composed of a metal mixture that falls outside every specification ever established for Washington quarter production, a composition that suggests the planchet itself may have originated from a batch of experimental or foreign-sourced metal that was never supposed to enter the production line, giving this coin not just visual uniqueness but a fundamentally different material identity from every other quarter ever struck at Denver or anywhere else. When all of these elements are taken together, the wrong reverse die design, the triple strike at varying orientations, and the anomalous alloy composition, what you have is a coin that the leading authentication services have certified as the most complex multi-error piece in the documented history of Washington quarter production, a designation that carries enormous weight in the collector community and that directly underpins the $150 million appraisal that makes this coin the grand finale of today's video. The authentication journey of this particular coin took nearly 4 years from initial submission to final certification, an almost unheard of timeline that reflects just how extraordinary, just how unprecedented, just how challenging to evaluate this piece truly was. Multiple authentication services initially returned the coin to its owner with requests for additional documentation. Independent metallurgical labs were brought in to analyze the alloy. Die specialists were flown in from across the country to examine the reverse design elements under high-powered magnification. The process was, by every account of those involved, unlike anything they had ever participated in during their professional careers. And when the final certification came through, when the last authentication service issued its official determination that this coin was genuine, that every one of its extraordinary errors was authentic, that there was no fraud, no manipulation, no artificial alteration, that this coin had emerged exactly as it was found from the production line of the Denver Mint in 1981, the numismatic world responded with a level of collective awe that even the most experienced observers described as unprecedented. Private valuations began climbing immediately. The $150 million figure that this coin now commands represents not just the sum of its individual errors but the market's recognition of its absolute singularity, the fact that there is no other coin like it anywhere in the world, that no error, no accident, no alignment of minting circumstances will ever produce its equal, that whoever holds this coin holds something that is by definition the only one of its kind that will ever exist. And that is the true meaning of $150 million. Not just a price. A statement. A statement about irreplaceability, about historical accident, about the extraordinary things that can happen when human systems and mechanical processes and the random chaos of production all converge at exactly the wrong moment to produce exactly the right coin. So tonight, when you go through your quarters, and I sincerely, genuinely hope you do pay special attention to your 1981 D pieces. Look at the reverse design with fresh eyes. Does the eagle look exactly right? Are there any elements that seem slightly foreign, slightly unfamiliar, slightly other than what you've always expected a Washington quarter reverse to look like? Look for any sign of multiple strike impressions overlapping Washington's portrait. Feel the weight, feel the texture, hold it under good light and rotate it slowly and watch how the surfaces interact with the light. Because somewhere out there, in someone's change dish, in someone's coin jar, in the back pocket of a jacket that hasn't been worn since 1994, there may be another 1981D Washington quarter with partial versions of these extraordinary errors, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it, waiting for its moment to change someone's life forever. This is why we do what we do here at Strikora Coins. This is why we study these coins, why we share these stories, why we take what most people dismiss as pocket change and show you the hidden universe of value and history and human story that lives inside each one. The 1994 D quarter at $122 million, the 1986 P quarter at $145 million, and the 1981 D quarter at an absolutely staggering $150 million, 3 Washington quarters, 3 stories of minting miracle, 3 reminders that the most extraordinary things in this world are often hiding in the most ordinary places, and that the difference between ignorance and fortune is simply knowing what to look for. Now you know. Go check your coins. And if you find something, anything, that makes you stop and look twice, share this video with someone you trust and come back here to Strikora Coins, because we will always be here, ready to help you understand exactly what you're holding and exactly what it could mean for your life. Thank you for watching every single second of this video. You are exactly the kind of viewer this channel was made for.